Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you an overall look at the Samyang VAF series, to kind of define what they are, to see if Samyang's claims hold up on the 3 lenses that have been released in the series to this point, and to talk a little bit about them in general, and to see if maybe they are a fit for you. Now, I will follow up with individual reviews of each one of these lenses. I've been working on 3 of them to this point, more on that in just a moment. But I'm really intrigued by this series and the practical applications for modern shooters, for the simple reason of this. Increasingly, we have seen that the capture of images has become more of a hybrid technology, and that's reflected in the cameras, in that what used to be, stills-only cameras begin to add on some, very tacked-on video features that have progressively grown to the place to where now a modern camera being released, and these are coming in a Sony mount, so we'll look at Sony specifically, that modern Sony cameras are almost equally capable as video capturing devices as they are stills capturing devices. And so we've seen this progressive move towards hybrid features in cameras, but less of a similar move towards a hybridization of actual lenses, in that we have had, obviously photography-related lenses that have autofocusing motors often, and, photography-related features, and then we have cine-related lenses that are designed for video, have some video-specific features, tend to be manual focus only. But most modern photographers are not really looking for manual focus, and even if they want to do some video work, they may do some situations where they might want to do some pulling of focus, but in many situations what they want is the ability to have autofocus for that. I think Samyang has really recognized a need in the market, and they have leveraged their Tiny series, which, as you probably know, I'm a fan of, to provide the basis for this new VAF series. Now, the Tiny series, because it's been released over a period of time, and during a period of time in which Samyang was really growing as a lens maker, particularly when it comes to autofocusing lens, that as a byproduct, you see kind of a growing progression of features and controls as a part of the lenses. Originally, like the 18mm and the 45mm, when they were released, they were plastic fantastics. You had just the lens barrel and a very plasticky focus ring, and that was it. They had very great optics inside, but nothing going on as far as featuring. As time progressed, we saw with the release of the 75mm that they added a custom switch that allowed you to use the aperture ring, or the manual focus ring as an aperture ring, give you a little bit more control there. The 35mm f1.8 added weather sealing, then the 24mm added a focus hold button. I love the optics of the 45mm f1.8, but again, begin to really wish, wow, I wish this had weather sealing. I wish this had the custom switch. I wish this had the focus hold button. So I'm really excited to have a chance to revisit some of these lenses with a full feature set. And I'm enjoying using these lenses that excel really at both things, both video and stills, and we'll highlight that in this today. There is a plan of 5 lenses in this series, including a 20mm, a 24mm, a 35mm, a 45mm, and a 75mm T1.9 lenses. Now, initially the releases include the 24mm, the 35mm here, and the 75mm, and I am reviewing those first 3 collectively all at the same time, and then the 45mm and the 20mm are to follow. And I have to say, I'm really excited about both of those lenses. I love the 45mm, and it seems like they've improved a few things about it, like the minimum focus distance. And then, of course, a high-performing 20mm T1.9 would be a fantastic addition. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So today I'm going to give you an overview of this, how it all works, how I've found them. I've tested off Samyang's claims at this point. So I'll cover that as a part of that, and we'll take a look at all of those things right after a word from our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Phantom Wallet, the minimalist modern wallet that is now even better with the new Phantom X that is crafted from aluminum right here in Canada. It is 22% smaller and 35% lighter, while still making it easy to access your cards and money when you need them, thanks to their unique fanning mechanism. You could even customize your wallet due to its modular design, with accessories like a money clip, cash holder, ID display, and even Chipolo and AirTag tracking integration. Visit store.phantomwallet.com to check out their unique sizes, styles, and finishes that span from aluminum to wood to carbon fiber, and use code DUSTIN15 for 15% off when you're ready to check out.
Now, the Tiny series, as designed for photography, they had the photography designation. So, for example, I'll use this 24 millimeter. I have both the Tiny version here, which is a 24 millimeter f1.8. The new VAF lens, because it is designed around a cine standard, is a 24 millimeter t1.9. And so stills photography lenses are designed around the physical aperture, how big the aperture iris can open up. In this case, it can open up to the standardized size of f1.8. Video lenses, however, are more interested in how much light is going to reach the sensor, and so that you can have a standardization of that. And so they measure t-stops or transmission stops. It's almost always the case where you have a little less in terms of light transmission than what you do in the maximum physical aperture, for the simple reason that that light has to pass through the various glass elements that make up the optical design, and there's going to be a little bit of loss of light as a part of that process. So the very fact that these are so close from f1.8 to t1.9 means that these are actually quite efficient in terms of their overall design. Light transmission is quite good. I've seen a lot of f1.8 lenses that, when tested, had a t-stop as small as, for example, t2.2. And so I'm actually impressed by the consistency of that. And so all of these have the exact same light transmission. That's really important if you're looking to standardize across a set of lenses. And of course, standardization is one of the key components of the VAF design. All of these lenses are identical in size. They all have the exact same diameter of 72.2 millimeters. That's 2.84 inches. They are all 71.1 millimeters in length. Also, a little bit smaller, 2.84 inches, but it rounds out to the same. They all have a 58 millimeter front filter size. They all weigh in at 280 grams or 9.6 ounces. And so as far as the physical design, they're all completely standardized. And so every lens, regardless of its focal length, is going to be the exact same size. So part of designing around a common standard means that there is a little bit of compromise that comes into the size, in that all of these are going to be slightly larger than their Tiny counterparts. And you can see that they're still compact lenses, but they are just a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier in every case than the Tiny lens that came before them. Part of that, however, though, is that these are much more feature-rich, including something like up front, you have a kind of a titanium-looking metal ring at the front, but there also is basically a metal lens bayonet mount on the front of the lens as well, and that is to allow for an accessory ring. So in this case, the only accessory that has been released to this point, I've got it mounted on the 35 millimeter over here, and that is a manual focus adapter. But there are also electronic contacts at the front of them to allow for electronic communication. It gives Samyang some flexibility on how they can design these accessories in the future. So for example, this manual focus adapter, it continues to have the tally lamps in the front, and so you can visually look at that in front. And that is one of the features that's a part of the VAF series. There is a tally lamp at the front and then also at the side, so whether you are monitoring from the front, like I would be right now, or monitoring from the side, you can actually see when recording is taking place. In this case, you can actually change the colors of the lights in using the lens station from Samyang. In this case, the standard is that it's going to be green during standby and it's going to be red during recording. And so I've been doing a lot of recording over the last 5 or 6 weeks using these lenses for just these type episodes, and so I could see, if I was looking at the lens, I could see that tally lamp showing me that recording was taking place. A nice little feature for when you're actually doing video recording. And then of course you could also monitor from the side as well if you were operating the camera rather than sitting in front of the camera like myself. All of them have a standardization of the custom switch, which now has even more flexibility due to these lenses, and you can control that again by using the lens station, which I highly recommend that you get if you're going to own these lenses for the firmware updates, but also to give you more customization and control over them. And also there's a focus hold button, and that obviously for the most part is going to be controlled from within the camera body itself. For the most part, the focus ring in the Tiny series was just kind of plasticky, and none of them were all that great. In this case, we have a infinitely better feeling focus ring that is smooth, nicely damped, and it has a full 300 degrees of rotation, and it is linear. And so that allows you some repeatability, though obviously you can improve that with the manual focus adapter, which we'll talk about in just a second. All of these are now standardized to where they have 6 weather sealing points throughout. The fact that they all have the exact same body means that they can all can be weather sealed in the exact same way as well. So because of having that front accessory mount there, none of them come with lens hoods, nor are they really compatible with traditional lens hoods, and you'll find that the actual cap is one that covers over the top. And I will note on that, they have a little cutout on the side of the cap that allows you to see the lens designation. The fact that all of these look identical means that you're probably going to want to utilize that if you own more than one of them. It allows you to quickly visually see which lens you're reaching for, and trust me, if you have a number of these, I've had 3 of them in a camera bag at the same time, you really want to be able to see which one they are because they look identical. They all have a 9-bladed aperture. They all have linear focus motors. So as Samyang claims, they are completely standardized all across the board, which obviously is really important, particularly for video work. It's also kind of nice though for stills work as well, because you know exactly how the lens is going to handle and feel, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. So obviously there are going to be some things that are specific to each individual lens. That will include things like minimum focus distance. You can see that from this chart here. They also are going to have individual optical performance, and that includes focus breathing. And while Samyang obviously has worked to minimize focus breathing in these lenses, you're still going to see quite a variation. There is a minimal amount of focus breathing in the 24mm, a little bit more in the 35mm. There'll be a bit more still when the 45mm is released, and a fair bit in the 75mm. I should point out that as third-party lenses, these are not currently compatible with Sony's focus breathing compensation. So that's going to be one potential mark against them, particularly something like the 75mm that does breathe a little bit more. Let's take a moment to talk about these accessories. There's only one to talk about at the moment, but obviously the potential for more to be added. So why a manual focus accessory when you already have a really nice manual focus ring on the lenses themselves? There are a couple of factors there that I think that are relevant. The first of those is the fact that on any kind of mirrorless designed lens that has autofocus, it is focused by wire, which means that as a byproduct, the input that you put on the focus ring is going to be routed through the manual focus motor. Byproduct of that is that you can't have any kind of hard stops. So what we have got here is now we have an accessory that does add hard stops. The other thing that you don't have with focus by wire is you don't have a distance scale or distance markings that allow you to repeat focus pulls. You get that also on this accessory, and so they've managed to standardize that by, it kind of changes from lens to lens just how much each kind of focus throw accomplishes. And so in some cases you are getting a little bit less than that 300 degrees of rotation. So it is a cleverly designed accessory here that I've already found very useful, and I can get really, really nice focus pulls by using it. I will also point out that it easily is removable, easily mounts and locks into place. You just line it up with the contacts, and then you have a lever that locks it into place. It does retain, as noted, that tally lamp there at the front, and it is compatible with a 95mm matte box. So as we move towards conclusion, let's take a look at some of Samyang's claims. Some of the other things that they claim about this series that is really important for video capture is that there is a unified color tone. And so all of these comply with Samyang's CCI, or Color Contribution Index, which has not been the case with the Tiny series before. So what that means in theory is that you can switch out the lenses and you can get the exact same look in the color temperature and overall look of all of your different shots. So I tested that by setting a manual white balance at 5000 Kelvin, which matched the lighting temperature that I put on my set. I used a color checker, and I switched between the 24mm, then the 35mm, and the 75mm. Only thing that I changed in between was just moving the tripod to allow a little bit more standardization of the framing of them. And I found that yes, I did get a very consistent color temperature. And in using them in general, I would say that that holds up as well, that the look of shots from one to the other lens is nicely standardized. And so that's a really important feature for video capture. And frankly, it's something that in the Tiny series, they started off with a warmer look that was more typical for Samyang at the time, and they progressively grew more neutral as Samyang, I think, has improved their optical glass in more recent lens designs. So again, it's very nice to have a standardization across these, which means that you can use potentially all 5 lenses and get a similar looking color temperature and footage that's going to match nicely for post-production. Another thing that they say is that there is going to be smooth focus transition. So I've already talked a little bit about the manual focus ring, which I really like, infinitely better than the Tiny series. I will point out this, that if you're wanting to do focus pulls by hand, 300 degrees of rotation is a long way. And it's fine if you're doing, smaller distance focus pulls, but if you're wanting to pull from infinity towards minimum focus distance or vice versa, it's going to take more than one rotation. And so as you can see, as I pull along a fence here, that you can see the individual stops where I'm limited by my wrist potential for turning. And so in that situation, you're going to do better to have some kind of focus follow type device. But for shorter focus pulls, I actually found that the focus rings are really, really nice. And in many situations, that's going to be more the range you're actually operating in. They also say that there is very fast and quiet autofocus here. I will note that autofocus, as you can see, is for the most part fast and accurate for stills. It's not as fast as, like Sony G Master lenses that have multiple linear motors that are operating there. But because none of these elements are huge, autofocus is snappy enough, I think good enough for most situations. And I found that when doing focus pulls that they weren't necessarily like lightning fast, but I think they're actually tuned for smooth transitions. And if that's what you're looking for in a video focus pull, again, doing an autofocus pull along that fence shows, I think, a really nice progression where it's not abrupt, but rather it's a nice smooth. And you can tweak that a little bit, obviously, with the focus speed within the camera body, and even tweak it a little bit in terms of some of that performance in using the lens station as well.
Samyang has designed the manual aperture control to where it behaves differently whether you are in photo, as you can see here, with a little bit more in terms of some visible stepping. And then if I switch the camera into video mode, we can see that the aperture control is smoother and with less visible stepping as a part of the design.
And so you're going to have to use the custom switch to use the focus ring for that. And while, as noted, this is a nice focus ring, it is aperture by wire, which means, as you can see, there's a little bit of lag between input and the actual movement of the aperture blades. And so as a byproduct, I found aperture racking just okay, not exceptional. And that's going to be true of any kind of lens that is relying on input through a focus ring and then electronically going to the aperture iris as opposed to direct control. But for hybrid work, not too bad. So in conclusion, I actually have really loved using these lenses so far. I think they do a great job of straddling both worlds. They are really great for photos. I love the optics in a number of these lenses, and so I'm really glad to see them rehoused in a more premium form here. They're also great for video. There's a marked improvement for doing focus pulls. And I love the fact that, for example, for a segment like this, I can use them for filming this kind of thing, but they're also much more practical if you want to do some actual manual focus pulls and use them in more video applications. And so really great for that. You could set them up for gearing and switch them. They work really well. And I've used them on gimbal, for example. And so really nice things. And so if you're hot swapping on a gimbal, the fact that they're all the exact same size and the exact same weight means you don't have to rebalance it. You can just lock and load and ready to go. They have better features, they have better build, they have a more mature autofocus performance, they have consistent color, they have the standardized sizing. It's quite a positive list of improvements to these overall lenses. But the big question, of course, at the end of the day, is that are they worth the extra money over the Tiny equivalents? They're typically about twice as much as the Tiny equivalents. And so, for example, I'm filming on the 75mm f1.8 right now. Right now, you can get that at retail. It's currently marked down. You can get it for around $300 US. The 75mm t1.9 from the VAF series is going to run you more like $649 US. That's more than twice as much. That's a lot of additional money. And so I would say it makes sense to invest in the VAF series for a couple of things. If you're actually going to do a fair bit of video work, they are markedly better for video work. But also if you're looking to buy multiple lenses, I think that they make almost more sense as a series than just individual one-off lenses. And I actually hope that once Samyang has released the whole series, that they'll think about doing a kit where they put a number or all lenses together, maybe with a nice, travel case for them, and sell them in that fashion as well, because I think they make a lot of sense if you're looking at buying multiples and you want to have that standardized color temperature, you want to have a standardized operation and size for video work. That's where I think they make the most sense and where I think they most justify their price. As cine lenses, they're pretty reasonable. The question will be, is the market ready for hybrid lenses? And I think that the VAF is a step into a new area of the market. They're testing the waters. I really like these lenses. I hope that Samyang succeeds with this. If you want more information, you can stay tuned for my individual reviews of each one of these lenses. And there's also an article that I've written that hashes all this out and more. And you can check that out in a link in the description down below. There's also buying links there, links to follow myself or Craig on social media, to become a patron, to get channel merchandise. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.